Happy birthday to Simran, one of the evergreen performers in Tamil cinema history and one of the best performers in the 90s and the early 2000s. And also one of my childhood crushes. But yeah, happy birthday to one of the best actresses that Tamil cinema has ever seen. And I wanted to highlight my 5 favorite performances in her entire career. Now, this order is just going to be off of the year that the film was released. So it's not going from best to, least best or vice versa. So yeah, let's go through, in my opinion, her top 5 best performances that she's ever had so far in her entire career in Tamil cinema. To start off this list, I wanted to highlight one of her early performances, Tulla the Manamam Tullum. Now, Tulla the Manamam Tullum could have easily been a run-of-the-mill average romantic drama, but it's because of Simran's performance that it makes this movie into a classic romantic drama film. Her performance in this movie is very subtle, and I think that in general, Simran is a very subtle performer in comparison to Jyotika, which was her biggest counterpart and pretty much the person that she was trying to battle out against in terms of becoming the #1 Tamil cinema actress. I think that Simran was a very subtle, very internalized performer, and in this film in general, she does a really good job of playing a lot of the emotions internally. And it's only at the ending scene, which I highlighted right here, where we actually get to see a lot of facial expressions on her face. And I think that this is one of her most underrated performances and one of her best performances in general. And it's kind of cool to see that even though this technically is a Vijay movie, the heart and soul of this movie, in my personal opinion, is Simran. And it's because of her, in my personal opinion again, that this movie became such a big blockbuster at the time. Second performance that I wanted to highlight in her career was Vali. Now, Vali ironically also came out in 1999, and it is the opposite of Tulla the Manamam Tullum. If you think that that movie is a subtle, kind of lighter romantic drama, Vali is an intense, psychological thriller / romantic drama. And also, Simran's performance in this movie is the opposite of her performance in the previous film. Now, Vali is one of those movies that easily could have went the other way had it had another performer in it. And also, for a person this young into their career, this is a very tough role to do. And I think that Simran did a really good job of playing anguish, of playing pain, and also playing a very emotional character who is terrorized by her brother-in-law, who's played by Ajit. Now, again, I think that she won a lot of awards for this film, and rightfully so. When you watch this movie, there's certain scenes that you watch and you feel the intensity because of Simran's performance. And again, like Tulla the Manamam Tullum, even though this is technically an Ajit film, and Ajit definitely is the best part of this movie, Simran comes at a very, very, very close second. And this is, in my personal opinion, probably the best intense emotional performance that she's ever done in her entire career. But I think that there's another movie that I'm going to highlight right after this that is just slightly better and probably her best performance in her entire career. Kannathil Muthamittal. Kannathil Muthamittal is definitely, in my personal opinion, Simran's best performance. Again, like I said in Vali, that was a very emotionally intense role. This is a very emotionally intense role, but I wouldn't say the intensity is the same as Vali. It's more of a dramatic arc that she's dealing with in terms of having to deal with the fact that her adopted daughter is kind of leaning away from her and distancing away from her because she's trying to find her biological mother. And I think that Simran in this movie does an excellent job. This is the best subtle performance I've ever seen from an actress in Tamil cinema in the last few decades. If you want to know how to play subtlety to a T, this is the role and this is the movie for you if you want to see Simran at her peak. She was robbed of a lot of awards from this movie because I think that she only won a couple. She didn't win the National Film Award, which was surprising to me. But if you really want to see Simran at her acting peak, if you want to see her intensity, but not in a sense of like showing it outright, but kind of internalized, this is the role. And again, I think that she should act in another Maniratnam film in the future because I think that Maniratnam is the one director that really utilized her well, again, to a T. S.J. Surya obviously worked with her really well with Vali and also New, but I think that Maniratnam captured the essence, the aura, and everything about Simran to 100% with this role in this film. And in my personal opinion, it's the best out of the 5 movies that I'm highlighting in this video. So far in this list, we've highlighted very emotional, very dramatic movies, but Panchatandaram is my favorite comedy film in Tamil cinema history. And also, I think that this was the movie that proved to a lot of people that Simran is a very gifted performer. She is very subtle in terms of her performance usually, but this is one of the only movies that I can remember off the top of my head where her performance is a little bit more out there in a good way. And I think that it's more bombastic, a little more extravagant, and a little more exaggerated, but it really works with the comedic theme of the movie. And I think that she did a really good job of playing exaggeration very, very well in this movie. Her character is a little more cartoonish here, but I think that Simran did a really good job. And also, this is one of the rare movies where we actually got to see the dancing skills of Simran in a very, very extravagant way, because she's a classically trained dancer. And the battle scene between her and Ramya Krishnan near the end of the movie is one of the greatest petty fight scenes I've ever seen in Tamil cinema history. And it's really tough for anyone to compete against a person by the likes of Kamal. But Simran holds her ground, and she does a really good job with the comedy sequences in this movie. Obviously does a really good job with the romantic and the dramatic sequences in this film too. And yeah, in my personal opinion, this is her best comedic performance she's ever done. She did 2 movies with Kamal. The other one was Pamal Ke Samandam. But in comparison to that film, this performance in this film blows that other film out of the water. So yeah, in this list, this is her best comedic performance overall. The last movie that I'm going to highlight in this list is Varanamayiram. Varanamayiram, in my personal opinion, is one of the greatest movies, not just in Tamil cinema history, but also in world cinema history. I've talked about this many times before on this channel. I don't want to go into details, but one of my favorite things about this movie is Simran. Simran kind of took a sabbatical after she got married, and for a while she didn't really do a lot of movies, but Varanamayiram was kind of the big comeback for her. She won a lot of awards for this movie, and this is one of her most intricate and most layered performances she's ever done, because she portrays a character that goes through a lot of stages in her life. She plays the wife to one of Surya's characters and also plays the mother to one of Surya's characters. And I think she does a really good job of capturing aging and also capturing the subtle changes that happen over time, you know, from her time in college to the point where, you know, she's a grandma. In this movie, she does a really good job of showing all of the talents that she possesses as an actress. And I think that even though I still think Kennathil Muttamittal is her best performance, Varanamayiram is very close to that in terms of the abilities that she's able to show as a performer and the overall characterization of her character in this movie. And I think that Gautam Menon has worked with her again in other things, but this is probably the best work that they've done together as a duo. So again, happy birthday to one of the greatest performers we've ever seen in the past few decades. And let me know in the comments below if I missed out on some great performances of hers. And let me know your favorite performances from one of the greatest actresses of all time, Simran.